In the sweltering heat of a Georgia summer in 1944, a star was born in Atlanta. Gladys Maria Knight entered the world on May 28th, a child whose voice would eventually captivate millions and earn her the title Empress of Soul. As she celebrates her 81st year in 2025, Knight's journey reads like an American epic, a tapestry of soaring triumphs and crushing defeats, of music that defined generations and personal battles fought away from the spotlight's glare. When I was a little girl, about 4 years old, my mother told me I kept singing rather than talking, Knight once reminisced in an interview. It was like music was already in my soul before I even understood what it was. This innate connection to melody would propel a shy young girl from Atlanta's segregated neighborhoods to the pinnacle of musical achievement. 7 Grammy Awards, induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and a legacy spanning over 6 decades. But behind the velvet voice and dazzling smile, a woman who would face addiction, heartbreak, and loss with the same determination that fueled her rise to stardom. What forces shape a legend? What private sorrows counterbalance public adoration? And how does one woman maintain her grace and dignity through it all? Gladys Knight's story provides a masterclass in resilience, a testament to the human spirit's capacity to transform pain into purpose and struggle into strength. Her early years in Atlanta's Bronzeville neighborhood laid the foundation for both her musical gifts and her indomitable character. Born to Merrill Knight Sr., a postal worker, and Elizabeth Woods Knight, she was surrounded by the sounds of gospel music from her earliest days. The Knights were a family of faith, with the church serving as both spiritual sanctuary and musical training ground. Young Gladys absorbed the passionate delivery and emotional honesty of gospel performers, elements that would later define her distinctive vocal style. At just 4 years old, she stunned adults with her powerful rendition of On My Knees at the Mount Moriah Baptist Church, earning her first standing ovation, a harbinger of countless more to come. By 7, she had won Ted Mack's Amateur Hour, a popular talent competition of the era, singing Nat King Cole's Too Young with a maturity that belied her tender age. The foundation of what would become one of music's most successful groups began innocently enough at a family birthday celebration in 1952. 8-year-old Gladys, her brother Merrill Bubba Knight, sister Brenda, and cousins William and Eleanor Guest formed a singing group to entertain at the party. The children's natural harmony and Gladys's precocious vocal ability caught everyone's attention, and the Pips were born, named after cousin James Pip Woods, who encouraged their formation. What began as childhood play quickly evolved into serious musical pursuit. Though the group's composition would change, Brenda and Eleanor eventually left. Replaced by cousin Edward Patton and friend Langston George, their commitment to excellence never wavered. Under the tutelage of their musical director Morris King, they developed a reputation for impeccable harmonies and sophisticated choreography that would become their trademark. But could a group of teenagers from Atlanta's segregated neighborhoods truly break through in an industry dominated by white executives and artists? Their answer came in 1961 when they recorded Every Beat of My Heart, a song written by Johnny Otis. Initially released on the small Huntum label, the song was quickly re-recorded for Fury Records when it began gaining traction. The single soared to number 6 on the Billboard Hot 100 and topped the R&B chart, announcing Gladys Knight and the Pips as a force to be reckoned with. The group's early years were marked by a grueling tour schedule on the Chitlin Circuit, a network of venues considered safe for Black performers during segregation. These formative experiences shaped not only their performance style, but also Knight's understanding of racial injustice in America, a reality that would inform both her music and her later activism. We would perform in these beautiful theaters for white audiences, then have to sleep in our car because no hotel would take us, Knight later recalled. But on stage, for those moments when we were singing, all the barriers seemed to disappear. Music has that power. Their signing with Motown Records in 1966 marked a pivotal moment, though their relationship with Berry Gordy's legendary label would prove complicated. While Motown provided greater exposure and resources, Knight often felt the group was relegated to second-tier status behind acts like the Supremes and the Temptations. Nevertheless, the Motown years produced enduring classics like I Heard It Through the Grapevine, 1967, which Knight recorded before Marvin Gaye's more famous version, and If I Were Your Woman, 1970. Their distinctive sound, Knight's emotionally raw vocals contrasted with the Pips' smooth harmonies and choreographed moves, set them apart from other Motown acts. By the early 1970s, Knight's artistic vision was expanding beyond what Motown seemed willing to accommodate. In a bold move that shocked the industry, the group left the security of Motown for Buddah Records in 1973, seeking greater creative control and financial compensation. The gamble paid off spectacularly. Their first Buddah Records single, Midnight Train to Georgia, became their signature song and first #1 pop hit, earning them a Grammy Award in 1974. The song's narrative of dreams deferred and love prioritized resonated deeply with audiences, showcasing Knight's unparalleled ability to convey complex emotions through her voice. Have you ever wondered what makes certain songs transcend their era to become timeless classics? With Midnight Train to Georgia, Gladys Knight and the Pips created more than just a hit record. They crafted a cultural touchstone that continues to move listeners decades later. The song's power lies partly in Knight's delivery, which transforms a simple love story into an emotional odyssey, her voice conveying both heartbreak and hope in equal measure. This iconic performance of Midnight Train to Georgia showcases Gladys Knight's extraordinary vocal prowess and the Pips' legendary choreography and harmonies at the height of their success. The mid-1970s represented the creative and commercial apex of Gladys Knight and the Pips. Albums like Imagination, 1973, and I Feel a Song, 1974, yielded multiple hits including Best Thing That Ever Happened to Me and I've Got to Use My Imagination. Their television appearances, including their own summer replacement series in 1975, brought their dynamic performances to wider audiences. During this golden period, Knight was in her early 30s, a seasoned performer with nearly 2 decades of experience, yet still discovering new dimensions of her artistry. Her voice had matured into the rich, soulful instrument that would become her hallmark, capable of both power and nuance, gospel-tinged exuberance and jazz-influenced subtlety. I never wanted to just hit the notes, Knight explained in a 1975 interview. I wanted to make you feel something. If I'm singing about heartbreak, I want you to feel that heartbreak. If I'm singing about joy, I want you to feel that joy. That connection is everything. This philosophy distinguished Knight from many of her contemporaries. While the disco era ushered in an emphasis on production and dance beats, she remained committed to emotional storytelling through song. This artistic integrity would sustain her career long after many hitmakers of the era faded from relevance. Yet, as her professional life reached new heights, Knight's personal life was increasingly complicated. Her first marriage to James Newman had ended in 1973 after he struggled with drug addiction. She was raising their children, James II and Kenya, while maintaining a punishing performance and recording schedule. In 1974, she married Barry Hankerson, a relationship that would bring both joy in the form of their son Shanga and eventual heartbreak. The demands of fame were taking their toll in other ways as well. Knight had developed a gambling addiction that began innocently during tour stops in Las Vegas, but gradually intensified into a serious problem. For years, she kept this struggle private, maintaining her poised public persona while battling demons behind closed doors. Addiction doesn't care who you are or what you've accomplished, Knight would later reflect. It whispers to you that you deserve an escape, that you're in control, and before you know it, you're not in control at all. The contrast between Gladys Knight's public success and private struggles grew starker as the 1970s progressed. While radio stations played her hits and audiences flocked to her concerts, Knight was fighting battles that her fans could scarcely imagine. Her gambling addiction had evolved from a casual diversion to a compulsion that would eventually cost her hundreds of thousands of dollars. Las Vegas, with its 24-hour casinos, became both a professional venue and a personal temptation. Knight would perform to adoring crowds, then spend hours at the baccarat tables, chasing the high of a win or trying to recover mounting losses. What drives a person who has achieved everything to risk it all at the gambling table? For Knight, gambling provided an escape from the pressures of fame and personal disappointments. It offered a rare space where she wasn't Gladys Knight, the Empress of Soul, but simply another player at the table, anonymous in her concentration on the cards or dice. "I would be at the table for 12, 16 hours at a time," she later admitted. "I missed appointments, I missed rehearsals sometimes, I wasn't eating properly, I knew it was a problem, but I couldn't seem to stop." Her second marriage to Barry Hankerson was unraveling as well. Though they shared a son, Shanga, born in 1976, the relationship was strained by Knight's touring schedule. Hankerson's management ambitions, he would later manage R&B star Aaliyah, and their different visions for their future. They divorced in 1979 after 5 years of marriage. With 2 failed marriages before age 35, Knight faced the painful reality that romantic fulfillment seemed as elusive as her professional success was assured. This pattern would continue with her third marriage to Les Brown, a motivational speaker, which lasted from 1995 to 1997. Adding to her personal challenges was the changing musical landscape of the late 1970s and early 1980s. Disco's dominance and then the emergence of new wave, hip-hop, and electronic music pushed many soul artists to the margins of popular culture. Though Knight and the Pips continued to record quality material, their commercial impact gradually diminished. Legal disputes further complicated this period. Contract issues prevented Knight and the Pips from recording together for several years, though they continued to tour. They released solo projects, Knight's 1978 album Miss Gladys Knight and the Pips' Callin' the same year, but the magic of their collaboration was temporarily interrupted. Through these professional setbacks and personal trials, Knight maintained a public dignity that belied her private pain. Audiences rarely glimpsed the struggles of the woman behind the microphone, a compartmentalization that took an emotional toll. "I was raised not to air your dirty laundry," Knight explained years later. "My generation didn't talk about our problems publicly. We smiled through the pain and kept going. That strength got me through, but it also meant I suffered in silence for too long." The early 1980s brought both reconciliation and reinvention. Knight and the Pips resolved their legal issues and signed with Columbia Records in 1980. Their new material embraced contemporary production while maintaining their soulful essence, resulting in hits like Save the Overtime, For Me, and You're Number One in My Book. Have you ever experienced a moment that fundamentally changed your perspective on life? A spiritual awakening that made previous priorities seem suddenly insignificant? For Gladys Knight, that transformative moment came in 1997 when she was baptized into the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, a decision that would profoundly influence her personal life and artistic choices. Knight's spiritual journey had always been evident in her music, from her early gospel influences to the soulful depth she brought to secular material. But her conversion to the LDS Church represented a more defined commitment to faith as a guiding principle in her life. "I had been searching for a long time," Knight reflected. "I had success, I had fame, I had material things, but there was still something missing. When I found my faith, it was like the missing piece fell into place. It gave me a peace I hadn't known before." This spiritual awakening coincided with significant professional transitions. Gladys Knight and the Pips had given their final performance in 1989, closing a remarkable 37-year chapter. The group was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1996, a fitting recognition of their indelible contribution to American music. As Knight embarked on her solo career, her newfound faith influenced her artistic choices. Her 1998 album, Many Different Roads featured gospel material, reflecting her desire to use her voice in service of her spiritual convictions. The album showcased a different side of Knight's artistry while maintaining the emotional authenticity that had always been her hallmark. This period also brought personal healing. Knight finally confronted her gambling addiction, seeking help and gradually freeing herself from its grip. With characteristic candor, she later shared her struggle publicly, hoping her experience might help others facing similar battles. "Addiction thrives in darkness and secrecy," she observed. "Bringing it into the light, admitting you need help, that's the first step toward freedom. It took me too long to take that step, but when I did, it changed everything." Her fourth marriage to William McDowell in 2001 provided a stable, supportive partnership that had eluded her in previous relationships. Together, they established the Reynolds High School Community Foundation in North Carolina, focusing on education and community development in McDowell's hometown. Knight's philanthropic work expanded significantly during this period. Beyond her foundation work, she became an advocate for diabetes awareness following her own diagnosis, and supported numerous causes related to children's welfare, education, and the arts. The new millennium saw Knight embracing her role as an elder stateswoman of soul while continuing to create vital music. Her 2006 album, Before Me, paid tribute to great female singers who influenced her, including Ella Fitzgerald, Billie Holiday, and Sarah Vaughan. The project demonstrated both her reverence for musical tradition and her continuing vocal excellence well into her 60s. Throughout the 2000s and 2010s, Knight maintained an active touring schedule, delighting audiences worldwide with her timeless hits and newer material. Her performances were marked by the same passion and precision that had distinguished her work with the Pips, though now informed by additional decades of life experience. "When I sing Midnight Train to Georgia now, it means something different than it did in 1973, Knight explained in a 2010 interview. "I've lived so much more life. I've seen dreams realized and dreams deferred. I've loved and lost. All of that comes through in how I interpret the song today." The sweetness of professional longevity and spiritual fulfillment was tempered by bitter losses as Knight entered her senior years. Family, always central to her identity, became both her greatest joy and the source of her deepest sorrows. In 2004, Knight endured one of a mother's most unimaginable pains when her son, Jimmy Newman, died at age 36. Jimmy had struggled with drug issues similar to his father's, creating a heartbreaking echo of Knight's first marriage. Though he had periods of recovery and worked as Knight's manager for a time, his battle with addiction ultimately proved fatal. How does one continue after losing a child, perhaps the most profound grief a parent can experience? For Knight, faith provided a framework for processing her loss, though not an easy answer to the question of why. Her music became more than entertainment. It served as a vehicle for healing, both for herself and her audiences. "I believe Jimmy is at peace now," Knight said in a rare discussion of her loss. "And I believe I'll see him again. That doesn't take away the pain of missing him every day, but it gives me hope to keep going." The family's musical legacy continued through Knight's granddaughter, Nastasia Knight, who showed promising vocal talent. Knight took special joy in mentoring Nastasia, seeing in her a continuation of the family's artistic tradition. Her relationships with her surviving children, Kenya Newman and Shanga Hankerson, had their own complexities. Knight's demanding career had meant frequent absences during their childhoods, creating distances that took years to bridge. With maturity came mutual understanding and deeper connections, though not without occasional strains. A particularly public family difficulty emerged in 2016 when Knight sued to remove her name from her son Shanga's Chicken and Waffles restaurants in the Atlanta area after tax problems and mismanagement led to the business's decline. The painful decision to distance herself from her son's venture reflected Knight's commitment to protecting her legacy and reputation, even when it meant difficult family choices. Family business can be the most complicated kind, Knight observed. You want to support your children, but you also have to maintain boundaries. Finding that balance isn't easy, especially when your name carries weight that you've spent decades building. Through these family trials, Knight found solace in her enduring marriage to McDowell and her expanding role as grandmother and great-grandmother. Her extended family grew to include McDowell's children from previous relationships, creating a blended family that reflected Knight's generous spirit and capacity for love. As Gladys Knight approached her 8th decade, the music industry and broader culture began to fully appreciate the magnitude of her contribution. A new generation discovered her music through samples, film soundtracks, and social media, while longtime fans remained loyal to the voice that had provided the soundtrack to pivotal moments in their lives. What does it mean to be not just a successful artist, but a truly significant one? Someone whose work transcends entertainment to become cultural heritage. Knight's legacy encompasses not only her commercial achievements, but also her role in advancing Black artistic expression during a period of dramatic social change in America. Her influence can be heard in countless female vocalists who followed her, from Whitney Houston and Toni Braxton to Alicia Keys and Jennifer Hudson. Beyond specific vocal techniques, these artists inherited Knight's approach to emotional interpretation and her commitment to authenticity in performance. Recognition continued to accumulate: a BET Lifetime Achievement Award in 2005, Kennedy Center Honors in 2021, and numerous honorary doctorates and humanitarian awards. Yet, Knight remained remarkably grounded, maintaining the same warmth and accessibility that had endeared her to fans throughout her career. Awards are wonderful, and I'm grateful for everyone, Knight said upon receiving her Kennedy Center honor. But when someone tells me that my music helped them through a difficult time or was the soundtrack to their happiest memories, that's the real reward. That's why I keep singing. And keep singing, she did. In her 70s, Knight maintained a performance schedule that would challenge artists half her age. Though her voice showed the natural effects of time, a slightly reduced range and power, it gained new dimensions of expressiveness and emotional depth. Critics noted that Knight had mastered the art of doing more with less, using subtle inflections and impeccable phrasing to convey meaning. Her 2019 performance of the national anthem at Super Bowl 53 showcased this evolved artistry, delivering a rendition that was both respectful of tradition and distinctively her own. The performance generated controversy when some criticized its length, but most recognized it as a masterclass in vocal interpretation from one of America's greatest singers. In 2018, Knight participated in The Masked Singer, performing incognito as The Bee, and introducing herself to yet another generation of music lovers. Her third-place finish at age 74 demonstrated both her continuing vocal excellence and her willingness to embrace new opportunities with humility and good humor. The COVID-19 pandemic of 2020 to 2021 forced Knight, like most performers, to pause her touring schedule. She used this unexpected hiatus for reflection and creative renewal, emerging with plans for new recordings and performances as venues reopened. The pandemic also deepened her appreciation for family connections and the simple pleasures of home life with McDowell in their North Carolina residence. As Knight entered her early 80s in 2025, she embraced her role as a living legend while refusing to be defined solely by her past achievements. New collaborations with contemporary artists, selective touring, and continued advocacy work kept her firmly engaged with the present, while her catalog of hits ensured her place in music history. What constitutes a life well lived? Is it professional accolades and public adoration, financial success and material comfort? Or is it something less tangible, the lives touched, the barriers broken, the personal demons conquered? As Gladys Knight celebrates her 81st year, her life embodies all these dimensions of success, along with the inevitable disappointments and losses that accompany a journey spanning 8 decades. The bittersweet in her story isn't just a poetic flourish. It's an accurate description of a life that has contained stunning highs and devastating lows, often simultaneously. Consider the irony that during her years of greatest commercial success, Knight was battling a gambling addiction that threatened her financial security and personal relationships, or that as she received her greatest accolades as a musical pioneer, she mourned the loss of her son and navigated complicated family dynamics away from the spotlight. This juxtaposition of public triumph and private struggle makes Knight's sustained grace and positivity all the more remarkable. Unlike many celebrities whose personal difficulties manifest in public meltdowns or professional decline, Knight maintained her dignity and artistic excellence through every trial. "Life will break your heart," Knight once observed. "That's a given. The question is what you do with that broken heart. Do you let it embitter you, or do you let it open you to greater compassion for others who are hurting? I've tried to choose compassion." This philosophy informed Knight's approach to both her art and her activism. Her voice, with its distinctive blend of power and vulnerability, conveyed life's complexities rather than offering simplistic, emotional narratives. Songs like "Neither One of Us" and "Midnight Train to Georgia" resonated because they acknowledged the painful compromises and deferred dreams that most adults recognize from their own experiences. Similarly, Knight's advocacy work reflected a nuanced understanding of social issues. Rather than performative gestures, she focused on sustained engagement with causes like diabetes awareness, addiction recovery, and educational opportunity. Her Reynolds High School Community Foundation exemplifies this approach, investing in long-term community development rather than quick fixes. Knight's religious faith, which deepened in her later years, provided a framework for integrating the disparate elements of her life into a meaningful whole. Her conversion to the LDS Church surprised many, given the faith's historical issues with race, but Knight approached this spiritual choice with the same thoughtful independence that characterized her artistic decisions. "Faith doesn't mean you have all the answers," she explained. "It means you trust that there is meaning and purpose even in the difficult parts of your journey. That trust has carried me through my darkest moments." As health challenges naturally accompanied advancing age, Knight faced them with characteristic fortitude. She managed her diabetes through careful attention to diet and exercise, adjusted her performance techniques to accommodate changes in her vocal capacity, and maintained an active lifestyle that belied her years. As 2025 unfolds, Gladys Knight shows no signs of resting on her considerable laurels. Plans for a memoir, selective concert appearances, and mentorship of young artists occupy her professional attention, while her expanding role as family matriarch, now including great-grandchildren, brings personal fulfillment. Knight's longevity in an industry notorious for disposable careers stands as perhaps her most remarkable achievement. From the segregated theaters of the Chitlin Circuit to the digital streaming era, she has remained relevant by balancing artistic integrity with judicious adaptation to changing times. This balance extends to her personal presentation as well. Unlike many female performers who resort to increasingly dramatic efforts to maintain a youthful appearance, Knight has aged naturally and gracefully, her elegant style evolving to complement each stage of life. "Getting older is a privilege denied to many," Knight noted in a recent interview. "I've lost too many friends and family members who didn't get the chance to see their 70s or 80s. So I don't complain about a few wrinkles or having to pace myself differently than I did at 40. I'm grateful for every day, every song, every chance to connect with an audience." This gratitude permeates Knight's current approach to life and art. Having weathered addiction, divorce, financial setbacks, and profound loss, she carries a hard-won wisdom that informs both her performances and her personal interactions. Younger artists seek her counsel not just on vocal technique, but on navigating the treacherous waters of fame and maintaining personal authenticity in an industry that often rewards conformity. As Knight reflects on her journey from church choir to international stardom, from young mother to great-grandmother, from gambling addict to spiritual seeker, the through line remains her voice, not just the remarkable instrument that earned her the title Empress of Soul, but her authentic self-expression in all aspects of life. The Bittersweet Symphony of Gladys Knight's 8 decades contains movements of triumph and tragedy, love and loss, faith and doubt, a fully human story made extraordinary by her talent and tenacity. As she continues writing the unfinished chapters of her remarkable life, she offers an inspiring example of resilience, reinvention, and the redemptive power of living one's truth. In the words of Midnight Train to Georgia, Knight has proven that sometimes a dream deferred isn't abandoned, but transformed, that leaving behind one vision of success can lead to discovering a deeper, more meaningful version. Her journey reminds us that our greatest struggles often contain the seeds of our most profound growth, and that a life's true measure lies not in avoiding pain, but in transcending it with grace. At 81, Gladys Knight stands as a national treasure whose voice has lost none of its power to move us, whether soaring through the final chorus of a beloved hit or speaking wisdom earned through decades of living fully, feeling deeply, and persevering magnificently through life's inevitable sorrows and joys. And as her song continues, so does her legacy, not just in music, but in the hearts of those she's touched along the way. If this story moved you, share it with someone who still believes in the power of soul, not just the sound, but the spirit. What does Gladys Knight mean to you? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the bell for more stories that honor the legends whose voices still echo through time.